use it.
I would have walked faster.
Switch name tags or so.
Habits.
Right. I'll move into order. Roll call.
Ms. McGough?
Here.
Mr. Olson?
Here.
Mr. Walker? Mr. Erkins?
Here.
Mr. Restigar?
Here.
Right. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Right, moving forward. Like to entertain a motion for the approval of the regular minutes dated June 18th.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On to the monthly activity and finance report, Cody and Stephanie.
Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for your time today. Normally I go through some operational highlights, and then today you guys get the treat of hearing from Julie Rising, our Assistant Executive Director that took over from my position as I moved into the Executive Director role. So some of my operational highlights I'm going to save and let Julie highlight those. So as you'll see on my normal operational updates, you'll say stay tuned for Julie's update. But on the event side, we had actually total of 16 total events in June, which is lower number than what we're used to. But at the end of the day, what I get a report is the financial component. And we had Daughters of the Nile, St. Luke's K-Fan, which is Kid for a Night, NAACR, which is North American Association of Central Cancer Registries. I had to write that one down. And all three of these events were great revenue generating events that really pushed us into close to $1 million a month for June, which is a record. So that's something that I'm very excited to report to the board. Again, when it comes to food and beverage, stay tuned for Julie's updates there. And then just Daughters of the Nile, I'll get a chance to highlight that. I know we talked a lot about it in prior meetings leading up to this meeting today, but a total attendance of 6,730 guests, total room nights 2,831 with an economic impact of 1.288 million. Really great piece of business. Again, thank you, Kristen, for your support and coming and talking to that group. So again, more to come on that and some of Julie's highlights, but I'll save those for her. When it comes to the Boise Center revenues, as I just spoke about, there is a record month. Again, as you can see, we brought in $937,000, which is a new record for June and a significant new record for June. Close to $1 million a month with 16 events. It just speaks to what type of events that we were able to book during that time. So kudos to the sales team, the operations team, the event management team, and food and beverage all together, with everybody on the team coming together to make Daughters of the Nile happen. It was really cool to watch. Those ones are my favorite events to see. But again, it really shows you here as you're looking at the numbers, the second highest revenue generating June would have been 793,000. So again, that really pushed us over the top. Those three events that I listed on the slide before were all six-figure revenue events. So they really moved the needle for June. Looking at gross profit and gross margin, June's gross profit margin was at 17.18. Current fiscal year is sitting at about 20.9, and that goal for the fiscal year is at 15%. So again, outperforming the goal and continue to be really strong. With that rebound, we were coming out of COVID, didn't want to get too far out on that, but I think this is much more in line with historic since the opening of Boise Center East, what we have seen. Prior to Boise Center East, this number was a little higher, but obviously that additional facilities, the staffing and needs for that have brought that down a little bit. So lodging room revenues. This is one that, again, it's always a month behind. I have actually seen the June numbers and I'll highlight those a little bit for you guys here. But again, continuing to see room revenues in May were about 21.1 or 21.2 million, up about 775,000 from prior year. Again, that's that orange bar in the middle for May. It's outperforming. May is a strong month, and then June again continues to be a really strong one as well. And I'll get to report on that, but I think the demand continues to really move the needle on what the ADRs are and what we're seeing from the ADR side. Room demand has increased about 1.8% from the same time last year. So again, we're seeing really strong demand. A lot of that's driven from Daughters of the Nile. As I get into the June numbers, get a chance to kind of point to a couple things here in particular. On this top line here, you're looking at the occupancy percentages. So for May, we are sitting at 74.2% on the fiscal year. And then that the ADR down below for May sitting at about 1.58.
What bumped it up last year in June?
June would have been Far West. So again, this is I'll share the numbers that I've got. And again, this is stuff that I get usually about the time that I send the board report out to you guys. In between then and the board meeting, we always get the STR report. So I have seen the June numbers. what was really interesting to me in this, this month in particular was June of 2023, the occupancy was sitting at 79.7% and ADRs were about $175 a night. Now in June of 2024, the exact same occupancy, totally different events because we had Daughters of the Nile versus Far West, came in at the same occupancy, but only $160, so about $15 less for ADRs. Now, just my analytics and what I kind of dug it into there, Daughters of the Nile, room blocks post-COVID, that was contracted in 2022. So hotels were still getting aggressive with room block rates at that time. So those came in on average about $199 a night. With an event like Far West, you have a lot of compression that happens and people coming in and not staying in room blocks, which allows the hoteliers to charge a little higher rate. And so that's that difference that I believe is leading to that about $15 year over year. Now, that was a record ADR that I've seen on record from 2015 going back, which I'm fairly confident that's a record for Boise in general. So you'll get to see those numbers populate into this slide, but I didn't want to populate them after I had sent you guys the slides. So some cool information to kind of pay attention to, especially as we continue to look at future opportunities for projects. This is a static slide that stays the same year just throughout the year. Again, it's the forecast. I adjust the forecast if I see a big change. Right now, it really isn't looking like it's going to throw anything off for the end of the year based on what we were forecasting prior. So again, we're looking at occupancies for 2024 finishing about 68.3, and then that ADR finishing off about 150 on average for the year.
So they're continuing to diverge.
What's that?
They're continuing to diverge.
That's exactly, yes. So that's the point I brought up in the months past. Really, they've stayed very much in line with each other, but we're starting to see that separation happen.
At what point do you think it's gonna?
When possibly AC Element come online, some other things I think will change that market a little bit. But at the end of the day, I still think that this is Boise's new norm. I kind of think post-COVID, but it may come back into in alignment again. So again, more inventory, more things like that will start changing some of the behaviors of the hotels. Boise continues to be a really strong demand. I've met with the hotels recently, all of them for the most part within the downtown core. And they get a lot of demand on Tuesday, Wednesday for corporate travel. Some of that's Micron, some of that's just Boise in general, just being a really strong market for corporate. And then continuing to see a little bit of ebb and flow on that weekends. They're all looking for a little bit more weekend occupancy. Now there's some outliers to that. Some hotels, depending on how they structure themselves or where they're located. So such as the Grove Hotel next door with hockey, those changes some of that pattern or their appetite for weekends versus midweek bookings. Future book business. This is a slide that I reported last month for the first time. Again, I want to make sure everybody understands how it's presented. So on that far left slide there would be the future booked economic impact. That is within the month, that blue, that teal square there, we've had 1.4 million of future booked economic impact within the month. So that's that current month of June. The sales team booked 1.4 million. Year to date prior, if we were to take the exact same time period looking forward, they had booked 11.3 million in economic impact. And right now they've booked at 11.9 looking at the same time year over year. With our goal that this is a metric I've changed with them rather than putting out the number of leads and all of that, as I've mentioned before, this is really a metric that I would like to see the sales team focus on because this is our mission and our goal as the district here is that 19.5 and they're pacing to hit that goal. So future booked revenue works very much in the exact same way. The current month, they've booked 356,000. Year to date, they had booked about 3 million in the same period of time. They're right ahead of that, just barely on the future booked revenue. So again, we're pacing very similar, right on pace for goal, but we are seeing a little bit of leveling off there as well. Future booked room nights works the exact same way, but the numbers vary enough that I wanted to separate it out. They've currently booked 2,479 within the month of June. Year to date last year, looking at it, we were at 19,000, and this year we're about 20,000 or 20,500. So forming to the goal, starting to see a little bit of that leveling off if you look at these year over year from 22 to 23 and now into 24.
Hey, can I just ask, when it's the future, it could be multiple years?
Yes, it's not in just next year. It could be in 26 or 27. So some of those contracts would be, yep. And that's how we're continuing to kind of take that needle and measure it. Event attendance, you'll see the blip on the radar here for June, and a lot of that has to do with Daughters of the Nile. So again, our event attendance really shot up. Fiscal year to date, we're sitting about 95,800 with the fiscal goal being 170, or the goal for the fiscal year being 170,000. We're sitting about 56%. Daughters of the Nile accounted for 6,730 attendees in June alone. Again, I think we're pacing a little behind the actual goal when I look at this, knowing how far we are through the year. When I tend to look at what events come on in November, Festival of Trees and those things like that will really catch us up. So there tends to be an end of year push for a lot of those attendance numbers. Economic impact, continue to be very proud of what we're doing on this side here. June of economic impact from events was 4.2. Again, Daughters of the Nile made a big impact in that, with about a quarter of that being just one event. And then again, we're pacing really well and we're actually ahead of our goal for the 41 million a year in economic impact. So continue to do great things for the type of business we're booking and bringing people here to spend money. Ratings. There's one little blip on the radar here where you can see we've got our very first 3. We've looked into this, we've talked about it. It doesn't make our team feel good when we get 3s, but again, some challenges based on timing of planning and some of the communications, but I've looked into it and it was more of a challenge from new event planners and getting information out and making them feel probably like they need their hand held a little bit more than what it was necessary in some ways. So that weighted average is still sitting at 4.95. Very proud of the team. Last month, we were sitting about 58 total events that answered. So out of the 16 events, we saw another 6 jump up from those responses. And that stays about in line what we have historically seen from the percentage of respondents to these surveys.
Could you add like the percentage response rate to this?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. What I'll do is I'll put the answered total events and how many total events we have to date, so you can see that.
Because I think it's running around kind of that 30-40%.
Correct, and that's what it stayed at historically. Some challenges, and again, this is what I call my Jody slide. View glass update. Again, we continue to be in communication from our legal side, and that's Holly Troxel. Some information sent from legal to View, kind of what our expectations would be. We're waiting for a response to that letter that was sent to them. At this point in time, depending on how they respond to that, that'll determine our next step beyond that.
What's your date on that letter response
I'd have to go back and look at the date on that.
that they need to respond by?
I don't know off the top of my
I
head.
don't either. I'd have to look into that and I can get you that back.
So you haven't had any communication from them?
Not since we've now turned it over to Holly at this point in time. Parking at the Idaho Competitive Aquatics Center. So again, we got some quotes and specs for an RFP to start working on that. It did come in the estimated dollar amount that we're looking at is about $456,000 to get that parking lot done to finish it off at the Aquatic Center. Right now, we'd probably be looking at spring of 25 in order for, that's what they're bidding on a lot of these concrete projects. There may be an opportunity if we got it in quick enough to try to get it done before October, but I was told from the current contractor that helped put this number together, that would be probably a push at this point in time. So anticipate spring of 25. They also think that number might come down a little bit because we get a better quote in the middle of the winter time when they're looking for work coming out of the winter and into the spring on that. So there's potential for that number to come down a little bit, but we will do the RFP process that needs to happen as per procurement law within the district.
And that includes all the way around, right, up through, what do you
Yep.
call it?
It'll get you basically the
and
entire
out.
U shape all the way through the parking lot, and it'll allow for emergency egress much easier. It'll obtain about 35 to 40 additional spots. Now, we've looked into see if we could kind of get additional ones, because I think on the south side of the building, there's really a lot of space there that's been used up for some of the ADA, but that's more than necessary, but we may want to keep that as is, but they're looking into that option as well if we wanted to gain additional parking spots. Really, this is going to impact the day-to-day use of the facility, and I know that we've got several members of our team as well as board members that actually attend that facility, and so I think you've seen firsthand the challenges that exist with not being able to go all the way around. This will allow an entrance and an exit. So there will be a clear entrance on the left side if you're facing the front of the facility, so to the south, and then the exit would be to the north side that would come out on that property. Continued to engage potential for space adjacent to the facility and trying to work those avenues, but those are continuing to be challenging based off of the current leases that are in place with the TOK site next door, that they're not interested in really offering additional parking spots, but they are working very closely with Ryan. He even asked about there's a Walgreens there that closed. They're using that as overflow for those tenants that are in that space right now. But he spoke highly of Ryan in their communication and making sure that he said that they work really well together. And they're trying to be as reasonable as possible to not have people park so that way they can protect the tenant parking, but also not scare people off. They understand that those tenants also get benefit from people attending the swim facility and using it, so. Space and demand, this has been really interesting stuff, as I mentioned before, meeting with each of the different hoteliers. And again, I'll just kind of use it as this is what we're challenged with, and I know I've spoke to this with the board before, something in an event like a convention that we've had 350 rooms on peak or 400, which means at the peak of their event, they're needing about 350, 400 rooms. Prior to COVID, with less hotel inventory, we were able to get that piece of business in 3-4 contracts at the most. For that same piece of business for an on-peak of about 350 to 400, takes 6 to 7 contracts. That's going to really hinder our ability to win business when they can look at Davenports and other places that they can get under 1 roof or 2 contracts. Now you've got attrition clauses. Most of the venues have reeled back what their appetite has been for additional room blocks. Now through the conversations, the meetings, there was a lot of opportunity to call us if we think that that's the difference in making the business or getting the business is additional 10, 20 rooms. And that was the benefit of having these conversations as a whole finale. Who do we call? Who can we really try to get creative if we're missing? We don't want to lose out and just be 10, 20 rooms shy of a block and then not get that business. And so all of them have said call. They'll be open to the discussion. Different strategies depending on the property. I think all of them have a little bit of uniqueness based on their location, ownership group's demand or goals and objectives. And so that's leading to some of the decisions. AC Element coming online, we think that'll help, but they're taking a very soft approach to kind of that room block in 2027. And then they will evaluate as we get closer to that opening if they're going to open that up. They are being a little bit more restrictive there. And so I'll continue to make sure that our sales team is being as strategic as possible with this. We are looking at some incentives for maybe smaller on-peak room night groups that would just fit in Boise Center, and that's a strategy. And I work with Mike and the team on what those look like and what those incentives will look like, and more to come for the team on that probably next month. So.
And Madam Chair, I took a quick look. The View Glass letter went out. It looks like 17th through 18th, we gave them 10 days. So we should see something by
Next,
first
early
part.
next week.
Okay, with that, I'll stay in for questions. Like I said, you'll get a lot of operational updates here coming from Julie that I've normally given on my first slide. Team's doing really well and proud of everybody. And just I'll use this moment to just say thank you to the board for their support. It has been a fun first 8 months of this position, and the support that I've received from the board all the way across from everybody's expertise has been phenomenal, and I appreciate it. And our team is very appreciative of the support. So thank you.
Questions? Yep.
Yeah, on the aquatic center, if we were to put that into there, are we charging the 5% return on that, or are we?
That would be up to the board, but currently we see this as an ownership opportunity to really enhance the quality of the facility. And there's some things just from an ownership side of making sure emergency egresses, I think it really benefits us. And I think it sends the message. So I'll leave that up to the chair and the board to decide if you'd like to go that route. But I think my recommendation would be, this is an enhancement to a property that we own that I think makes sense and shows in our good faith that we see the project being viable and successful. And this is our effort to try to continue to enhance that.
I think that price is about $2 a foot high
Okay.
from what I see.
Perfect. That's why we got you on the board.
Maybe
You can help out.
you
with
can
it.
help in the process of
Well, the RFP should,
the art. well,
Take care of itself. And
Yeah,
yeah,
but-
and when we go out to bid, that's naturally what the procurement law is for, to make sure we're getting the best price that we can. So.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
2 or 3 things. On that aquatics capital, I think the deal assumed that they would pay 5% of all our capital cost.
Okay. I'm very open to that.
You were there,
Yes,
as was Mike.
yes. That's why I looked at mine.
You recall anything different?
No, that's what it contemplated at the time, but yeah, I don't know that it addressed anything once the project was built. I don't think it contemplated us, frankly, putting more money on after the project was built. So I think it's probably not specifically addressed in the contract anyway.
And I would look at this as an enhancement, not a capital need, but at the end of the day, that's something we could determine in some ways to the property.
Well, I think it goes to the heart of the deal. You know, what are we paying for? What are they paying for? We're building the building and the capital and they're paying rent. And the arithmetic to determine the rent is 5% times what we spend.
Again, more to come on this as we get through the RFP process, and there will be an action item for the board to be able to approve. And we will get to I'll actually make sure that me and Mike meet about that separately and determine with the board chair.
Okay, well, you know where my vote is.
You know where you stand. Thank you, Jody.
Second question, whatever happened to those dissenting clubs that showed up here a few months ago?
Kristen and myself have met with the owner of one of those clubs several times, continue to listen. Right now, they're working it out independently of each other within their own avenues, whether that's including legal or not. We've basically kind of offered what we did with Kathy Silik through offering that opportunity for negotiation in a kind of a neutral area. They took that opportunity. That's kind of as far as we really offered at this point in time. We do not want to get involved in the operators operating. That could cause us some challenges. And so we really continue to look at what touches our agreement with ICA. And if there's something there, we absolutely will take action and look into it further. But right now, this appears to be a direct challenge between the operator and one of their users based off of the terms and conditions of the agreement in place with them.
Final question, I kind of missed I saw the average room rates and I heard what you said, that it's not getting better. And some of us, all we see is new hotels being built. So are you saying that that isn't enough?
Correct. Yeah, I don't believe that's enough. And what it is it's these smaller blocks coming on, or not even blocks, but smaller number of keys in a hotel that isn't really eating enough of what the need has been. I mean, I remember Pat reporting to the board at one point in time, about 800 rooms short within the district was the estimate. Even up to 1,000 was the number I had heard. And so with these little properties coming on and the growth of Boise, I think we're just barely keeping up with what we're seeing from growth and demand. And now you add Micron and a lot of other properties. I think that's causing ownership groups to look at, we're getting really good ADRs, even though occupancies, they're not trying to drive them real high. They're keeping them very similar, even with the additional inventory, and they're able to make more per ADR and the people are staying and paying.
So to get bigger blocks, we need a bigger hotel with more rooms.
Well, the Renegade looks like a pretty damn big hotel to me.
I'm not sure what's the room count there.
I'd have to go back and look.
It's more of a boutique, isn't it?
Yes. But it's still, I
Big
mean,
hotel.
the biggest one will be AC Element when they come online, and they've talked about possibly opening up 80 to 100 rooms. That's currently the biggest block that we're usually getting from a hotel would be the Grove Hotel. And that prior to COVID was about 120 rooms. Post-COVID, it's about 100. So that shows you that. I think again, as the AC Element comes online in 26, late 26 or 27, they may adjust and offer up potential blocks of that size. Their ownership group's going to determine that based on the market where it's at the time. I will share just in particular, we're continuing to see as we go for proposals into 2027, some of the numbers I saw on the most recent blocks are coming in close to $300, if not north of $300. And Spokane's at the $199 for 2027 rate. We're not going to win that business when we're that far apart. And so we need to be strategic. This is part of what I'm going to tee up next with our group that I brought into town. I think that there's some opportunity here to try to help solve some of that for the district. Thank you.
Any other questions? Stephanie?
Good afternoon. Oops. Why is that not working? Well, oh, now I may. There we go. Okay. This is our fiscal management report. I really want to, as I become more acclimated with this role, change this up as we've stated before. It's a lot of information thrown at you in one little Excel square. This is the Boise Center District Aquatics, the revenues year to date. It also has the expenses. What I'd like to do moving forward, but with the interest of time, we were not able to do this, is break this down on a monthly basis to where the reporting is a little more consistent with what the revenues that you saw Cody report on earlier. You then will be able to compare it with the expenses on those same monthly basis. It'll also give us an opportunity to highlight any of what the Boise Center and, well, mainly the Boise Center is doing to be good stewards of the money that we receive in those subsidies. So we'll be able to drill down a little bit with that and look at the return on investment. This slide is our tax revenue. We're starting to see, this is our third month now where there's a dip in what we budgeted for our tax revenue. So you've got April, May, and June with just a slight decrease. June tax revenues, as you can see, came in $122,000 short of what was budgeted. We're just being mindful of this dip, want to point it out, and definitely get out ahead of it to see how we need to adjust as we move into our forecasting the rest of the year, but also coming into budget season. Transfers, capital operating bond, as you can see, our 2024 capital. This is another one I'd like to just dive down into a monthly one to get to you guys. The capital for 2024 higher than the 2023 capital, strictly because, as we've stated before, those 2023 projects, several of them were carried over to 2024. The East renovation project, that alone was over $850,000. And so that's in the 2024 total. Operating transfers, a little lower than the previous year. That's again, due to the revenues that are being generated by the center. So less transfers are having to come over. 2024 bond payment is lower. You can see that the aquatics dropped off, and this is strictly the East building bond that we have on the 2024, and that outstanding is 1.6 is what we're looking at.
So,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, can I just want to check?
Yeah.
It's not actually bond payments, then it must be just debt
Debt
payments,
service.
because,
I believe that's what she had in there as well,
Okay.
previous, yeah.
Because aquatics was never bought.
because Quaterson was not bought, so
Yeah.
it's
Thank
something
you for
else,
that
right?
clarification. The investment slide, this is our cash position. This is an old slide. This is what used to be reported, and this is what we're going to change it to, the new slide. This comes directly from the Clearwater dashboard. As we've said, Cody and I have been working with them over the last several months in creating some new slides to present to you. So this is directly from the our statement from them. We currently, our fixed income with them is the $25 million, just over 25 million. This is also another slide that comes directly from Clearwater. It will, it's showing you the percentages from the trailing year, trailing quarter, trailing month, prior year. It's a lot of information. I'd like to probably dive down a little bit further with this and not give you as much, especially if it's unnecessary.
What is price return?
Sorry.
What is price return?
The price return, I still am in training with them as far as all of these fabulous terms that they use to carry through. I will get back to you on that, but again, it's more information than any of us. There's so much in those dashboards that it's a little overwhelming. I like this slide. This is the duration slide. It definitely helps us gauge as the board determines what projects we want to take on. This is where our $25 million is invested and how far out the duration is on those maturities. So you can see that in the next, quarter, there'll be $2 million that will mature. And then the quarter and a half a year, the 3.4, so on.
And what are you doing with that once it matures? Are you reinvesting? Are they
We are
reinvesting?
reinvesting it at this time, yeah. And based upon what the board directs, we can become more aggressive with that and not go 3 to 4 years out, we can do shorter investment.
But I'm assuming they have
They have a standard kind of operating right now,
they
knowing.
see where the maturity is and they're gonna fit it into that.
Yes.
Right,
If
okay,
we tell them we were looking at a possible expansion or something, they're gonna shorten that down and
Right.
move stuff into that front end.
okay.
This is the slide that shows our cash position. After all of that, those other slides are taken into consideration, we are currently sitting at the $27 million. We have 250,000 in restricted funds and a stabilization fund reserve of 6 million, and that has remained consistent. As I pointed out in previous meetings, the only number there that's really of any importance or value is our cash position and where we're sitting. So this nets out to a little, it's about 3.6, a little higher than 3.63 million is what it nets out to.
Step.
Yeah.
We used to have CapEx funds on there. Have we caught up with all of that?
Yeah, we've changed that process a little bit in that CapEx pack was very much protecting about 10 million in future capital expenditures. I've changed the way that we're presenting that. Between our 11 million that we're receiving in tax revenues, that's where we pull capital funds from anyway. And so protecting 2 million a year for the next 10 is probably not necessary if the board would like to continue to do that. I mean, we made it through COVID without touching a $6 million stabilization fund, and we're still able to do all of our capital expenditures. So I think this is the fiscal way to operate. I would take feedback from the board directly if we want to change that back, but I remember talking to the board chair and kind of going through, I don't think we need to present that 10 million kind of for the next 5 years worth of capital funds that need to be protected. Open to discussion.
And then when you're gonna be redoing the slides, you're also gonna be adding in income,
Percent of income.
Well, he reports earlier and on the revenues, and then, yeah, I'll
like
probably
investment income.
investment income. Yeah, we will. Yeah, absolutely. Any questions?
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, on to other business. Cody, do you wanna kick this off?
Yeah.
Pine Street Group?
Yeah, I just want to welcome up Matt Rosar and Webb Miller from Pine Street Group. I don't know if Webb's going to sit up here at the front or not, so let Matt take the lead. But this is a group that was introduced to myself through a counterpart that I was working with when we were talking about doing a ceiling remodel inside the grand ballroom, and kind of got that 1990 drop ceiling effect. As you can look above us here, that's something that we're not seeing in a lot of newer convention centers. And I was working with an architect called LMN that is out of Seattle on that potential design of that type of ceiling project. They reached out because we kind of put that on hold within COVID, reached out to me as I took over the new role and asked, hey, where are we at? Do you guys have any projects? Are you interested in kind of talking about the ceiling? And I said, no, we're really kind of looking at opportunities for what might be the next project that the district could participate in. When he heard that, he said, do you guys have an idea what that is? I said, we're kind of looking at everything. We tend to get a lot of entities reaching out to us and asking us how we might be able to participate in a project. And he kind of said, let me introduce you to a group that I think might help you. This particular group has 10 years of very, very important experience within this sector, within working with relationships, convention centers, and I'll let them speak to their experience there. But with this introduction, I did take the opportunity to meet with them, talk with them, and think there's an opportunity here to potentially work with Pine Street Group based on their unique expertise. Also, I would just highlight, and I know that there could be some concerns of bringing in a group out of Seattle into Boise. The expertise that this group has is second to none, at least from my perspective locally. But at the end of the day, if there is, we would open those conversations. Me and Chase have met with several developers, people across the board that have been interested in projects. What happens in that scenario is there could be the potential for conflict of interest, or they've got a piece of property that they've identified as a really good opportunity for them to develop. We may have some potential, I don't know if I could put conflict of interest as much as they have some skin in the game to whatever that project may be. So bringing in an independent from the outside to give us kind of a look of that, I think has a great value. So let me turn it over to Matt Rosar from Pine Street Group, and Webb Miller.
Great, thank you. And thank you for allowing us to present today. Just a little bit on Pine Street Group. So I'd like to say we're a boutique real estate company. People often say that we're a developer, and it's because we're most noted for some of the large scale complex projects that we've been involved in. And while those are interesting, we're not the traditional developer that many think of, in the sense that the work we're involved in is typically leading work on other folks' behalfs, whether it's equity, whether it's boards, whether it's, pension funds. It's typically us leading projects because of our skill sets and our expertise. Our project selection is really based on working with good folks, finding interesting assignments, and creating value and being proud of what we work on. We're intentionally small. We're not looking to grow. We're not looking to be a commodity. We're looking to really maintain a strong team and deploy those resources carefully and really excel at the work we do. Our expertise are in community outreach, community growth off of projects we're involved in, public process, entitlements, creative thinking. We do a lot of consulting. We do a lot of deal structuring. We even do property management. So our projects range from the Seattle Convention Center that could be $2 to $3 billion, depending on how you think about it, all the way down to some of our retail work that can be a restaurant, or even down to a $200,000 tap house in a project we're a part of. So we go to all scales, and we span great depths, and really focus on, at the end of the day, did we do something that we're proud of? Our team, I'm joined today with Webb Miller. Webb is a senior real estate manager on our team. Deep expertise in project management, construction management, building, those sort of aspects. The last time I was in town, I was joined by Ingrid Johnson. Ingrid Johnson is on our team because she brings a different skill set. Her career has been focused as much as anything on real estate sales, purchases, and leasing. And so she oversees property management, acquisitions, sort of a different side of the business than what would typically get into, although there's plenty of overlap, but a different side of the business. Thanks, Webb. Yeah, you got here. So I thought today, I realized we're going to try to talk in about 20 minutes. Instead of going through all of our projects and talking about those in detail, I thought I'd just highlight some of our related experience, cherry picking things that I think could actually apply to Boise Center. Then I thought, because we're here, we do have unique expertise in convention centers, involved from the Seattle Convention Center from the very start to the very end, and all aspects of figuring out the project, working through the public process and politics associated with it, the bond financing, all the way into the conceptualizing, and then pulling it all together. I thought I'd just share a little bit about that project, a little bit about our approach, which is a little bit unique in the sense of other convention centers, and then just talk a little bit about Boise Center. This is a project. It was the revitalization of Seattle's downtown retail core. It was a partnership with the city in creating a garage the city would ultimately buy to help fund the project, establishing retail above, moving Nordstrom to their new flagship store #1 headquarters, and then taking Nordstrom's old buildings and trade, renovating them, and ultimately selling them off to build a better neighborhood. Sorry. This is the finished project. It's about 2 acres. And these were the other buildings that Nordstrom used to occupy that we renovated and turned into office and residential. The next assignment came from Washington Mutual, that was trying to figure out what to do with their headquarters, whether it stays in Seattle, moves to Bellevue, or leaves the state entirely. We ended up pulling together a unique opportunity with Seattle Art Museum that didn't necessarily want to sell their property, but a deal structure where we condominiumize a lower portion of the project that the Seattle Art Museum would occupy and renovate, with opportunity to grow up into the Washington Mutual Tower with cash infusion and ongoing revenue stream. And this is a picture of that project. The next one is Via 6, and we were approached by a pension fund manager that owned the north corner of this lot, the white building there. They owned the property underneath it. Their hope was to build a 400-foot tall tower, and when we got into the financials, we realized that it wasn't going to have the return that they needed for their pensioners. We determined that we should assemble the rest of the block, build 2 towers for a much more cost-effective project and grab much more economy to scale. Part of this project was the last parcel of a landowner that didn't want to sell. We found another property that was more appealing, and then ultimately ended up trading him into that project. This is a hotel of a Seattle family that happens to be also involved in Boise. They have a hotel in Monterey. They asked us to come down and help facilitate the renovation and repurposing of some of the various spaces. Pacific Science Center is 7.5 acres next to the Space Needle. If you're very familiar with Seattle, this is similar to our Central Park. It was built in 1963. It wasn't intended to be a permanent structure. The Seattle Science Center or Pacific Science Center occupied it. They haven't had the cash to maintain it, and we're currently rethinking the real estate, which may include bringing in partnerships with the city, the county, adjacent neighbors, and other folks to help monetize and repurpose and ultimately create a state-of-the-art science center that we hope will be reflective of Seattle's tech community. And that brings us to the summit. I'm gonna keep an eye on my time. That brings us to the summit. So we got involved, depending on how you think about it, this is the Seattle Convention Center, which is now referred to as the summit. Depending on how you think about it, we got involved about 5 or 10 years ago. At the time, the Seattle Convention, there's some similarities with Boise. They had been trying to figure out what to do with the convention center for some period of time. They brought us in. Some of the basic economics were over the previous 5 years, they were turning away more business than it had booked. It had high occupancy in the hotels, around 82%, so slightly above Boise, but not much, with another 10% of additional rooms under development. Similar to, I haven't checked the metrics of how many are under development here, but some of the same economic metrics. And the hotels were finding a lumpiness in the business based on the convention center's occupancy. And so the concept was thinking about tax stream. How do we maximize tax stream? The idea was to create a sister facility about roughly the same size that would be offset half a wavelength. So if you can see the top yellow bar, that was sort of the lumpiness in the convention center's business, which ultimately translated into the hotel occupancy. And the green bar down below is by offsetting it a couple days, they could have one moving in and one occupied and vice versa, which brought up the daily occupancy of the hotels more across the city and then ultimately drive RevPAR, ultimately driving more tax. When we decided to jump all in is when we started peeling back the layers of the onion and realizing how important convention centers are to the downtown core. And these numbers really caught our attention of the amount of economic impact that these various events bring to a city and how hard the city chases for these and how much money they spend trying to get them. And the odds of them getting them are actually quite small. Where when you look at convention centers, particularly Boise, of $40 million of economic impact year over year, and the idea of potentially expanding this or a sister facility or something else, whether that's a new build or an existing or some rethinking of this, it's just good fodder for the public of why we're all in this and what the benefits are to the community. The upper yellow shaped square, or what would you call that, is the outline of the Seattle Convention Center. So the summit, the lower yellow is the existing. We set out and evaluated a few different sites, including on the water, on a pier in Seattle Center, which is where the Pacific Science Center is, and ultimately concluded that having a facility adjacent to the existing had all kinds of benefits, and keeping it close in the downtown where folks can walk from their hotel and visit the retail and activate the streets. This turned into, depending how you think about it, 15 different parcels or 9 different acquisitions, which included King County Metro, air rights over the freeway with WashDOT, alley and street vacations through our city council, acquisition of some parking lots, threat of condemnation. So a very complicated structure that we ended up pulling together, which ultimately amounted to this building. And I have some more slides, but I thought more relevant to this discussion, at least preliminarily, was the land acquisition. So then I transition into some of our concepts and just convention centers in general. You know, it's all about the community, and we get into these projects and it's not about a developer or an architect or somebody putting their stamp on it. It's really about interacting and collaborating with the community, what the community needs, how the community can grow off it, how everybody can be a part of it, and ultimately flourish even more than they may have initially off their experience in involvement with the project. Obviously, the direct and indirect jobs are significant. The more you build, the more direct and indirect jobs you create. When we think about convention centers and where they go, we think about sort of rings of, you know, the bullseye would ideally be directly next to the convention center for all the reasons I just described, and then getting less impactful potentially the more you move out and continue to build on the center city. And then the other impacts that aren't always picked up in the economic report is the actual build itself. The amount of people that will start their careers on a potential project from a civic project and giving them opportunities and helping them grow throughout it. The amount of companies that locally will participate and the benefit that they get out of the opportunity, and making sure that it just doesn't stay at the top echelon of the companies, but you really go all the way down to early companies or companies that may not have an opportunity in figuring out how to get them involved. Traditionally, convention centers are based on their exhibit hall, and you know the trend in many cities is to push these convention centers out to the outskirts. Our general belief coming back to Center City is we need to figure out how to the extent we can, how do you accommodate an exhibit hall in a downtown core? And then those will tend to be big, large masses. And this design wouldn't be right for Boise. But for Seattle, the intent was to push the exhibit hall down below grade, only bring up the pieces that were necessary, and then work to break up the scale. And so you'll see some of that here. We also think people that come to Boise want to experience Boise, and we think that often people, the first impression is really important. And at the front door, one of our concepts is how do you create a distinctly different front door? Often you walk into convention centers, they'll be cold, they'll be shiny. And so how do you make something warm, welcoming, create energy, create a local sense of place that the visitors get an opportunity to come in and partake in. Separate from the front door is often the ballroom. And so how do you make an authentic, subdued ballroom that then can transform for the users? And we do that a lot with light. Obviously, they bring in their own banners and their own AV, and then you can create using light, have the building be the shell and the actual event be the nest, and be able to cater it to their specific event. Another one of our key concepts is when we visited other convention centers, particularly in the suburbs, are big concrete blocks, and you spend so much time inside of them that it's not as appealing as making it more vertical, adding glass to it, and then bringing the glass into the belly of the building. So by going vertical, it has other operational advantages, but it also allows the ballrooms on the top. It also allows you to bring light into spaces, and we use atriums and skylights, and then brought it all the way from the ballroom level all the way down to the lower exhibit hall, which is 300-foot tall atriums. These are the atriums here, or some of the atriums. And then often now when people come to conventions or come to events, they're as interested in the networking and the rekindling relationships or making relationships. And so how do you create pre-function spaces that help facilitate those chance encounters and consolidate energy and create more of a sense of place? So we spent a lot of effort thinking about the pre-function spaces and how you can consolidate them and activate them with USB chargers, outlets, and giving people opportunity to sit down and or lean over and interact. And so this is one of the main thoroughfares. As I've mentioned to Cody, we had vertical transportation at both sides of the building and then made the interior spaces quite flexible. So you could host multiple shows without them cross-pollinating and leaving them with the feeling of them having the building to themselves, but operationally stabilizing the revenue and getting as much revenue out of every day of the year you can. This is just a little bit, this isn't as lively as I would have liked, but this was another slide of how do you create more unique and different pre-function spaces so people have a chance to connect outside the meeting. And then looking for opportunities to embrace the outdoors. Boise is very similar in Seattle in the sense that in general, other than the 100-degree heat, has reasonably mild climate throughout the year. And so how do you create spaces that people can experience the convention center both on the inside and the outside? And then as part of this project and part of breaking up the scale, when I mentioned pushing the exhibit hall down, we tore up alleys and streets, or we took up alleys and streets, built the loading dock below grade adjacent to the exhibit hall. And then when we came back above grade, we used that space to create co-development pads, which provided additional sources into the project and then helped create a more diverse neighborhood. And so you'll see in this slide, the lower is the exhibit hall, and you'll see on the left, you'll see the loading dock. And then above conceptually is the co-development pads. And we intentionally did one office and one residential, trying to create as much mixed use throughout the day as we could. And then the trusses that we used to help create the long spans for the column spacing for the plenary space were deep enough that we were able to put parking in between. And the three different uses helped maximize the diverse use of parking throughout the day, because the convention center's typical use, at least in Seattle, its peak is the ballroom at 10 a.m. That's different from when the office is coming and going and the residential is coming and leaving. These are those two co-development pads. And so people now see the streets back and they don't realize that the convention center actually spans all the way across those streets. So that brings me to Boise Center. And as we've talked about this potential assignment, it's understand the opportunities, realizing that if there is an opportunity, there's a public process, and using our expertise and our experience to the extent that it's welcomed to help establish an analytical approach for the scarce resources, determine the drivers, whether it's economic impact, heads and beds, whether it's cash flow, jobs, figuring out what the drivers are to then prioritize on your resources, where and how much of those potential opportunities should be pursued. And that would include reviewing some of the past opportunities that have come to you and identifying potential additional opportunities of where resources could be spent. And then obviously reporting back and presenting our findings to this group. And so with that, we would see the next steps is discussions with stakeholders, explore and sort opportunities, facilitate a demand study. We think a demand study is roughly $50,000 to $100,000 in 8 to 12 weeks, and better understand the capacity, the financial capacity. Not saying that it all should be spent or should be spent in one place, but what is the capacity available? How could those funds go into other opportunities that could continue to drive the mission and ultimately long-term growth? And those financial studies could be $0 to $50,000, likely with an incentive fee at the end, and could take 4 to 12 weeks. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Questions? I personally, I kind of have a hard time figuring out what box to put you in.
Fair.
Consultant,
Yeah, I think particularly in this assignment, we would be a consultant.
and it's really just kind of figuring out what's next for, I know you're pointing to Boise Center, but really it's more district-wide, the
Yes.
district, right?
Yes.
What should the district be doing, looking at next? I know Cody has probably, told you that we struggle with capacities and
Mhm.
all the same stuff that it looks like you were dealing with in Seattle.
Yes.
So really the study, the demand study would be what is Boise looking at? What are we missing? What opportunities are we missing? What are the potential future opportunities?
I've really used the term leave no stone unturned with these guys in particular because I've heard a lot from either a multi-purpose sports complex, an expansion on the current facility, a sister facility. I think a demand study that would capture the needs of each of those opportunities would be very valuable to the district.
So this would be similar to like, is it CSC? Who?
CSL.
CSL that
Yes.
we've done studies with in the
Correct.
past,
Yep.
right? And when was the last date on that CSL study that we've done?
Last time that we did, or we kind of had one done, would have been the Aquatic Center. I know Bill Kruger did some stuff for Pat briefly, but it wasn't a full one. And then
Right.
going back to 2016 when we were getting involved in
Okay.
the expansion of
So
Boise Center
16.
East.
Because
Now-
the aquatics one was really just focused on aquatics.
Correct.
So the last kind of like, hey, look at Boise, what can we do?
Would have been back when we were
2016.
conceptualizing East. At
Okay.
that point in time, we we're starting to kind of feasibility study the East building, what that
Okay,
would,
so this is being more proactive than reactive.
correct.
Because I think that, we've been kind of reactive to opportunities that have come your way, right? That you guys have evaluated as a committee. And this is an opportunity to get a little more proactive on what could be next for the district.
I think the
Is that correct?
strategy has been in the past, and again, that's just at least my perspective of it, has been more of let's wait and see what comes to us. I would like to try to kind of take a little more proactive and start to look at what opportunities may exist and not miss something that would have been there that we could have had an opportunity to take advantage of.
And if I'm remembering correctly, that 50 to 100K, that's about what CSL cost, right?
Yeah, they did that number and I showed them that was very similar to the number I had.
I think it
from
was
my-
75, maybe the last estimate that we got from CSL, is that correct?
That is,
And that demand study would be a third party. That wouldn't be through
That wouldn't
us.
be you.
It would
Okay.
not be us. It would be through like a CSL, and
Okay.
there's a handful of others like them.
Okay,
Our objective would be looking at that demand study, looking at your resources, and then figuring out of the opportunities that have been presented to date or some of the other ones, how do you stack rank that and what would the cost be? And on the resources you have, where's the most benefit and where would you want to spend it? And, if a project then did come out of that, which it may not, then there would be at least in the Seattle Convention Center, a public process of which we would then shift to development manager on the district's behalf.
and in the past, who was that? It would be similar to like, was it ESI?
Yep.
On the east?
they were the GC, but they also did project manager. This group in particular kind of carried the baton from beginning to end for the Seattle concept. So they were, I think, very much early on, kind of very consultant, and then eventually it turned into project manager towards the end of the project all the way through. So they can provide a series of those resources and opportunities for us.
Okay,
That's up
and
to the
then-
board to whether or not we want to engage.
Speak a little to capacity study, because I mean, 0 looks pretty good to me. So how do we go from 0 to 50K?
Well, there's some consultants, there's some consultants that would say, we'll just take the incentive fee if you go out for a financing. And so they'd say, we're gonna spec all of our time and we're gonna take a 0.5% or percent of whatever financing that we
I
help
see.
support. Other consultants may charge you by the hour. Almost all of them want some success fee if there is a project that comes out of it.
Do we need to do that? Because I mean, haven't we done that? Haven't we?
Depends on what kind of capacity we would work with. The Piper Sandler folks on sort of the bonding part of it,
Right.
which is, effectively gonna be our capacity. It's not,
So this goes beyond bonding? Is that what you're saying? This goes to tax revenue,
Tax revenue, yes, both of.
revenue, event revenue?
Correct.
Assets, everything across the board.
And it's concurrent with your demand study so that it's both, hey, this is your capacity today. Here's your likely tax revenue growth. This is what it could be in 2 or 3 years if you want to pursue a project. And then coming out of it, here's from a board's perspective of how you can feel comfortable with the amount of resources you may spend and ultimately evaluation of things like early prepayments, like scenarios of what the risks and rewards could be.
Okay, so yes, I think, Madam Chair, we've done half of that. We haven't done we've done if you had the money, what can you get? We haven't, I don't know that we've hired anybody to do how much money would you actually have and do an analysis of tax growth and whatever your revenues are. At least that
And there's-
I'm aware of.
Assets we have, I mean, even the sales marketing offices, if we were to look at everything as a
Right,
whole
okay.
and wanted to kind of look at what kind of project now, I want to be able to cash flow for it, we want to be able to afford it, all of those things. But I think that's a piece that we have never really gone down yet, is looking at it from that full. I think we've done about half of that, more from a bonding capacity and a current revenue generation
And
standpoint.
I think we probably have just done that internally when looking at new projects. You say, this doesn't quite pencil out because, you know, even though we can afford it, we still have to operate it, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And then the aging out of old buildings that need capital needs, all of that goes into this as well, kind of considering what those needs are. So taking a deeper capacity study on where our finances would come from and what we could afford, I think would be beneficial for the board to be able to kind of look at from a deeper perspective than we've gone before.
And I'm assuming that's something that you don't do, but you help.
Your current company would likely be the leading horse. I'm not sure if there's a public process on that or not, whether other pricing should be solicited to compare. But somebody that has, at least in Seattle, they had worked with somebody for, almost his entire career, I believe. And he was the obvious candidate to explore the financing in more detail for the Seattle Convention Center. It may be the same scenario here.
I would anticipate that would probably be the case, which is the contact we have that's been helping with bonding capacity in the past,
Okay, and so you feel that they could probably
take on that piece. Yep.
expand that?
Yes.
Okay, maybe. Okay,
Well, we can certainly find, I'm sure there are smart people out there who can do it, whoever it
Right.
means.
and I'm assuming you have contacts for people
Yes.
who do those studies. Okay. And then have you done a lot of work outside of Seattle, or is it pretty?
Traditionally, we have not. We're obviously doing work in California right now. What's changed recently is we have a whole bunch of expertise in convention centers, which is unique and particularly unique for a small company because they don't happen very often. Traditionally, it's a large group, a national group, and it's a different sort of, it's just done a little bit different than maybe our approach. And so we said, hey, we have a value proposition here and expertise, and it would be fun to explore the places. I'm originally still have a family place in northern Idaho. Webb has a family place in Sun Valley, and so Idaho and Boise, and this is quite appealing to us to the extent there's mutual interest. We would be quite excited about Boise.
I'm assuming I'm not the only one with questions. Jump in. Chase, yeah.
None that really come to mind that you haven't addressed, to be honest.
So I guess, this would just be the opportunity to do a study and then see where would go from there. Is that correct?
Yes, we would present findings to you, and the findings could range from, explore a existing opportunity that's already come to you. It could be, some unique idea that has very little project value to us, or it could turn into, hey, we want a sister facility, or we want a new build of something. And that would then turn into a public process of which, assuming that there was still a mutual fit, that we would run through that process and, be quite interested in getting the development management proposal as well.
So how do you get paid? Because you said you don't do the study on
Sorry.
really either of them.
Yes, fair.
How do you get paid?
It's interesting, on an assignment like this, we would typically be time and materials. We don't quite know where the assignment's gonna lead us yet. And so we would need to explore that with Cody on the best setup, whether it's time and materials or retainer or what feels right for Boise Center. And yeah, it'd be a pretty straightforward sort of assignment. It's either time and materials or some success fee or we would need to work through the structure that feels best for Boise Center.
What I'd ask the board is that me and Chase could explore those opportunities and kind of come back to the board chair of the board and what those opportunities might be, costs, and present those and try to engage them further.
Okay.
If you guys see fit.
So I mean, I definitely think that updating the study, whether that's CSL or some other, is warranted. I mean, we're in a different environment than we were in 2016. And then also probably figuring out the financing, right? Because I think this is the year that 2020 falls off our books. Is that correct? As far as
No, it
bonding
already fell
capacity?
off.
Yeah,
It already fell off?
You're,
We're good?
past
you're
it.
through the cycle, for sure.
Goodbye, COVID. Okay,
Yay.
so then for your next piece to look at this stuff, I guess, is there a fee for that? Or is that what you guys would?
That's what we would be
Okay.
working on. I'd work with Chase on that as the exploratory committee, looking at projects, having them engaged further, reporting back to the board what that looks like to make sure that you're comfortable with it, but then moving forward. And at least if there's interest in that type of study, I think that would be our recommendation at this time. And then we do it step by step based off of our findings.
So we'd probably have to, go ahead, Mike,
No, no.
because I know, I'm assuming we'd have to approve to do a demand study, approve to do a capacity study, and then in the future, approve to pay them. Is that correct? Or
I believe,
Yes.
yes.
legal?
Yes, I'm just writing an email right now about all the steps, yes.
Okay.
You've got all
So
those,
then,
yeah.
is there anything that we need to do today? Besides saying,
I think if
Chase
you.
and Cody look at it further and
Empower,
let
yes,
us know?
the exploratory committee to continue to explore this further with empowerment to possibly engage on the study. I'll leave to Mike on what that would look like from an action item or not.
Well, nothing, I think you're looking at no sort of final approvals till
Until we
a
get
month
more.
or two from now.
Okay.
At all, so, yeah, there's nothing right now.
Okay.
Because you've got your committee already set up. so.
Right, yeah. Well, I think it's, you know, I mean, I think this is something that we struggle with, right? Is what's next? Where do we put the money? Where do we invest it? Because we've, you know, had proposals pitched to us, none of them quite worked out. So I think that's something that we, in our strategic planning, is that we struggle with, you know, what should we be doing? So a little assistance in that is helpful. Yeah,
And I'm sure we did 2 years ago now, I think the board
Yeah.
approved a strategic
Strategic plan.
plan, right? So,
Mhm.
so I don't know,
that would probably be helpful for them
Yeah,
to.
We've been through it.
yeah, so,
Oh, okay.
and I don't know if, I mean, obviously as you work through this, either that strategic plan gets updated, or maybe it's general enough that you don't have to do anything with it, but
Yeah, I
it's
probably
it's
should
part
look
of
at
the
it.
process.
Worth taking a look at, but I can tell you that this fits within with the strategic plan that we created in 2022 with the board. This very much fits in line with the top items that we identified as potential opportunities.
Okay.
So this would, I think, align with it, but it's worth definitely taking a look at, making sure that it's up to date and accurate. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that with Seattle, you had to acquire land around the existing structure. Question, because there's two facilities, what's the access between them? Is it street surface? Is it you run across the street? Is it, what's the?
Yeah, this is often a question, and when we were initially engaged, it was trying to utilize the bus tunnel that we were shutting down for the project, or creating some sort of bridge or some other access point. And we're personally big believers of, we want to activate the sidewalks. We want to get people out in the retail, in the environment, and try to cultivate that on the street. Both walking from the hotels to the convention center and then between the convention centers. That's our general belief or feeling of active sidewalks or healthy sidewalks.
Other questions at this time? Sounds like it's more of a,
Wanted to introduce, there's an introduction at this
Yeah.
point in time, and then really have had a great time. Appreciate their efforts and their time meeting with me. It has been insightful. Again, I think they bring a unique expertise that I don't know of existing within the Treasure Valley here. Would love to know if there is that expertise, but this is somebody that with 10 years, from concept to the convention center project, it was about a 10-year process. And I think what they've learned through that process is very valuable to an entity like the district.
I was just up in Seattle and drove by,
Oh,
it's on I-5 and drove right by it. So there you go. All right. If there's nothing else, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate you coming.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, Madam Chair.
Yep.
I've only been doing this for 4 years. But I have a need to, in probably a strategic planning setting, to figure out who's in charge. What does Ada County Planning and Zoning do? What does Boise City Planning and Zoning do? What does Visit Boise do? What does the chamber do? And what are we supposed to
And then you got CCDC and DBA and.
do? Yeah,
Yeah.
EVAP,
Got
DVAP,
enough alphabet soup there to.
Yeah, right, right.
so I've been
Oh,
wanting,
compass.
I've been feeling for a long time for a session where we put all those names up on a board and figure out who does what.
And what the touch points are, right?
Do you see that being a work session or in a board meeting?
No, not in, I don't care. I just want to know.
Okay, yeah, no, I like the idea. That's where I'm kind of trying to figure out where to fit it. It could run on for a very long board meeting, but if we did it as a work session and extended that on the front end, the way that we've done some reports in the past, I welcome whatever that opportunity, but I'd be happy to start.
Well, I foresee it as a workshop. We have to start out with a list. I don't even know who they all are. The Admiral probably does, but he's older than I am.
Wait,
But I mean, you know, we have consultants, we have auditors, we have financial advisors, we have investment advisors.
37 people on this email that is going around. That's a group that puts this together. So we've
Which,
got them.
What's what?
It started at Compass, right? And this one is
Yes.
specifically for housing in the valley. But that kind of brings in every single one of those people. And that's the email that comes out is 37 people every month for those meetings.
and who's the,
Compass, the regional planning.
yeah,
Community planning.
body. Yeah. Yeah. So they're the ones that are trying to bring.
I sit on that as an ex
Together.
officio member of the board. So yes, it is. It's every entity across the entire Treasure Valley, if not Idaho, even in some cases. Massive.
Yeah, I'd like,
Okay, I can take the lead on what that would look like and get you some more information.
well, maybe I should just go to one of these meetings.
It's true.
that's interesting.
Are we a
Okay.
member? Are we a member?
And ex officio on the board, we have a spot, and so I sit on the board from that side. So yeah, I'd be happy to have you join me on a call or go in place. A lot of times I hop on the Zoom call from the meetings based on calendars, conflicts and other things. So yes, happy to have you join.
Okay. Mayor Michael Cliff.
Your site.
Need Mary Michael's slide deck.
Is this not it?
This is Mark, you need,
Did you put them both together, maybe?
The communications update.
You might just have it loaded all of that.
Here, this is the one that I have, sorry, there's slides.
23,
It's different.
37.
37. And how in the world do they ever expect to get anything done?
do they?
It's been going on over a year. I don't know. I don't make all the meetings.
They do. I mean, it can be a little chaotic with that many entities
Which is the
involved.
nature, I get that.
But most of the ones that have the stakes in the area, what they're talking about, are the ones that are actively participating in the board meeting, and the others that like us, that if there's not something that involves us, it's a listening and opportunity to learn.
Why did I think Compass was transportation?
Regional planning.
See, learned something new today.
Absolutely.
well, hi, Mary Michael's gonna go first, but I'm gonna actually, since mine queued up, we're gonna take marketing first. I've got 12 slides. Well, we're gonna buzz through them because I know that we've already kind of hit our time limit, but just a chance to present to the board a few of our projects and a few of our initiatives that we are seeing through this year. One of the first things I wanted to mention is that we've worked with Visit Boise in creating a double truck spread in the magazine that is published by PCMA, which is a Professional Convention Management Association. We have not traditionally done a lot of advertising with this publication, but this was a unique opportunity that we investigated. We started planning for it actually last year and put it into this year's budget. But it gives us a chance to get an editorial that actually tell the Boise story. So this feature was called Places and Spaces and allows meeting planners to become introduced to the facility through photos and through just very quick snippets of what we have to offer here. So Fahlgren Mortine helped us with some of the copy points. the magazine itself did the graphics. But this was really a great piece that we did back in their March and April issue. So we appreciate collaborating with Visit Boise on that and shared that budget, which was a slightly heavy lift, but we budgeted for it and we wanted to get that exposure for our market. One of the new projects that we've identified and we completed this year, and you have a copy in your hand, is our new map and capacities chart. So we took some time to really dive into it, make sure our numbers are correct, updated the maps and some of the highlights that planners need to be aware of. This is a hands-on piece that's used when groups are touring the facility to give them an idea of, you know, as they're walking through the facility, what these rooms look like and what their capacities are. The next slide shows the new sales brochure, which you also have in your hands. So we've identified that as a project and worked with Allie and her team to really come up with the points and information that is important when introducing the market and the facility to new meeting planners. I'm gonna go back one slide real quick. As you notice, on both the sides of this chart, Boise Center West is now being identified as green, and Boise Center East is more in the teal shade. So both on the map and the capacities, you're seeing some color branding. I'm gonna make a mention of a couple of other projects that we're doing to help with some directional signs that we're doing to help guide people better to the facility that they are specifically looking at. One of the projects we've just completed, and if you want to step out on the terrace, if it's not too hot, you can see our new cityscape. Warren Lassen helped us design this piece of artwork that has now been installed to help block some of that sun. The windows needed to have some operational attention, and so the old graphics, which had just plain logos on them, has been taken down, and so there was a need for a new design there. One of the new things that we have coming up, we identified as a project this year, was to design some new programming for our video wall in the main lobby. This is a long video. It's probably 6 minutes long, but it's going to rotate throughout our different messaging. What it does, it has messages that say, welcome to Boise and welcome to Boise Center. So a guest, as they're looking at this video, will see different views of the skyline, different activities that they can participate while they're here, scenes of different events happening in different rooms. So it's really just it's filler video to really, because there's no sound, it can't really be a movie, but it's just visually stimulating the guest to say, aha, oh, I want to see that, or I want to go there, or I want to do that, to give people the idea that there's more here to do outside of these walls. We'll be doing a different version. This current version shows more summer activities, and we'll do one in the fall that shows more winter type activities. So this one doesn't have any snowmobiling or those kind of activities, or skiing aspiration. This is our new what we're going to call our industry advertising, or our trade advertising. As you'll notice, the check theme will be coming in. This is not a mic check. This is checking off, if a meeting planner has a list, the things they're going to be looking for are venue, site, and customer satisfaction. So the first sentence that we lead off this ad is, you know, investigate and find out why you should look at Boise Center, and how we're going to make your client happy. So the checks is going to be the new creative that we're going to roll out with, and then we'll continue to reinforce those three things that are important to a meeting planner to really help them identify a facility, identify a location, and identify the fact that it's going to make their clients happy to be here. So the same bullet points are consistent with most of our advertising, the 6 additional checks. So hopefully it'll catch some people's attention and help them zero in on why Boise might be able to help them solve their meeting questions. Our digital will follow the same concept, the creative, and with that first line of the sentence, which is really kind of zeroing in on, we're helping you check these things off your list. Give us a call, we'll make it easy for you. Our local advertising is also taking a turn. We're just getting a refresh, basically, same messaging. Our former ads were convene here, celebrate here, create here, and connect here. We decided this time around we're going to go with some e-words. So we're going to launch this new creative. These will appear in different publications. traditionally do trades with or sponsorships with, such as the Idaho Business Review and publications like that. So this will give us a chance to let people know what they can do here, and it doesn't always have to be a meeting, convention, trade show, wedding type marketing. It can actually be things that you can actually experience here. Our traditional advertising, we do have our third and fourth quarters here, just letting you know that we are consistent throughout the year in what we're messaging. And most of these opportunities do have digital associated with them, as well as some editorial and advertorial opportunities. As I mentioned, the teal and the green are our new projects. We are helping the operations department design some new signage to help with directions, to really zero in on getting people to the main entrance. We're finding people go to different doors and start shaking if it's closed, even though there's an arrow right in front of it that tells people where to go. You know, our doors are experiencing earthquakes on a regular basis. So this is just concept. We're still working through this and we haven't finalized everything, but there are some permanent signs and then there'll be some temporary like A-frame signs that will be color coded and be more specific. Right now, some of our signs say event entrance. So we're going to main entrance because of our main lobbies and those kind of things. It's just the main, hopefully will direct people and make it a little bit easier. So I'm sure Julia will address that as kind of a overall arching continuing project. We're also replacing the map that has been on the doors. The A doors is really, they're kind of in the background. No one ever really enters them, but it's right next to the B doors over facing the plaza. They face the plaza. And so we put on there a map, and we're going to mirror the map that is also on the back of the sales brochure to identify attractions, what people can go to, different museums, as well as the different hotels. So basically it's a quick reference guide if someone needs a point of perspective of where they are and where they can find things to do in Boise. A couple of our upcoming projects, just a quick list, employee reviews, our budgets for next year, our marketing, sales, and communications plan. Mary Michael and Allie and I are all already starting to dig into that. We're developing a Boise Center branding and sponsorship guide. This is designed for the meeting planners to know what resources they can use, if they can put stickers on which windows, if they can do floor decals, if they can, wrap poles or banners, can go here or there. It's really designed to be more of an informational piece, but it's also an opportunity for us to upsell clients when the opportunity is there. Just to let the board know, we are bringing on an intern in the marketing department for the first time in a very long time. I don't know that we've ever done it. Actually, we have an intern, Caitlin, who is actually working in our operations department and has expressed interest to have some experience in the marketing world. So we are going to bring her on. Mary Michael will be her main point of contact, helping with a variety of projects and just helping her gain the experience and actually use her as a resource to actually help some projects directly. Logistics, marketing is very involved in helping the logistics committee. And so we have our all staff meeting coming up in August and our Festival of Trees. We always look forward to that as a project. We just finished our school drive, we did a back to school drive to help the city of Boise and the Ada County Housing Authority. So we just delivered those goods this week. And believe it or not, next year is our 35th anniversary. And so that will be part of our marketing plan, and we'll put those elements, start promoting those things and getting ready to highlight that benchmark. So that's just a quick update from marketing. Any questions? And now, Mary Michael.
Make this quick for everybody. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Nice to see everybody. Oh, I went too far. I'll start off with some local media coverage and public relations, and I think this will hit home and reinforce a couple of the messages we talked about today earlier in the board meeting. On the far left in June, the Idaho Press Tribune did a nice short write-up about the excuse me, I almost said Supreme Court instead of the Daughters of the Nile 2024 Supreme Session 5-day convening conference that convened in Boise with 1,000 attendees. I think it was close to 3,000 hotel room nights, charitable contributions, and 2.6 million in local economic impact. And Chair Mucko was one of their speakers and welcomed them, or actually welcomed and congratulated because it was their final evening. And the procession there that you see in the room in the photo, the person in the white blouse with the lei, purple flower lei, that is Jackie Holloway, and she's from Caldwell, Idaho, and she is now the Supreme Queen. So she is the Supreme Queen of Daughters of the Nile throughout the United States and the 3 countries that they represent, and she's from Caldwell. In the middle, this is a square feet publication by the Business Review, really catering to commercial real estate and developers. A nice article about as Idaho grows, so does the need for more convention spaces. The writer interviewed Boise Center, Carrie with Visit Boise, who's also here behind me. Did a nice job highlighting Boise's rising appeal as a convention destination. The 2017 Convention Center expansion, which added 86,000 square feet, that was quickly absorbed into the market. And coming out of COVID, we hit the ground running, and by mid-2022, we have been at 70% occupancy or higher at Boise Center. And then on the far right, this was a recent article, and Jody, I'll send this to you because I think you'd like to read it. It's a relatively new reporter with the Idaho Statesman named Nick Rosenberger, who's
I
covering.
believe I forwarded it on to the board.
Okay,
I
so
think the board all got this article.
Okay, thank you. And he's covering business and growth from Oregon, but new to the Boise area. Did a very nice, thorough job and talked to several local hotel developers. We really appreciated that he hit many of our key message points about economic impacts, average spend, about a town attendees, and so forth. There is another local article that'll be published in the next couple of months in a corporate event planner's guide by Idaho Business Review, and our chef, executive chef Dwayne Griffiths, was interviewed all about event eats and trends and catering for food for large groups. And some recent meetings industry media. On the far left is Facilities and Destinations, which is a meeting and convention planner magazine. And I actually wrote this article, and then we pay for the placement, but it's a nice piece that looks more like an editorial piece. And in the middle, called Boise Center, has for the 6th year, we've been voted a Reader's Choice Award, a Smart Stars Award winner for Best Conference Center. This is by Smart Meetings Magazine, and we put the logo on our website. It's featured in many different ways as kind of a reinforcement and a third-party validation that Boise Center is a top conference center, convention center. Interestingly, over the 6 years, sometimes we land as a convention center, sometimes we land as a conference center, but we're always in the top in this publication as a Reader's Choice for a conference or convention center. And then a more recent article that's been in Smart Meetings Magazine, Visit the Gem State and See the Big Sky, is in Smart Meetings Magazine, and that's hot off the press. And this also on the lower right, it calls out 5 places to meet and highlights Boise Center, and those are our desserts and a little blurb there to highlight there. And I wanted to mention as we head towards doing our marketing plan this year, about 3 years ago, you saw meetings, publications, big media companies really shifting from their print and website to going to print and all forms of digital, whether it's newsletters, e-blasts, e-newsletters, video, placements, social media. So we have more of our marketing mixes now in this digital, even in the meetings platform. So you'll see on the left, Smart Meetings, this is a newsletter placement, and they only allow 150 characters. So it's getting to be more like X or Twitter as you do in social. So I've become very swift at writing short. And then on the right is a Meetings Today e-blast that we brand and send out. In any of the things that we're writing and putting out, we work closely with our partners at Visit Boise, and we have some messaging, key messaging that we talk about Boise, the explorability, the walkability of downtown, clean, friendliness, and our modern boutique convention center in the heart of downtown, and then tie into adventurous outdoor recreation. Our branded digital campaign, I'll highlight this year, the 2 ads on the outer perimeter of the slide are, we redesigned those last year, but new this year, we repurposed some video that we finished in 2023 promotional video into a new YouTube ad. And this YouTube ad, we launched 2 ads in May and they're just performing great for us. They launched May 1st and have a voiceover. The voiceover talent is a person from Boise, but she lives in Seattle. And if you've ever worked to hire a voiceover, you've never met somebody who can talk fast until you get somebody to narrate in 15 seconds. So that new YouTube ad, our YouTube ad impressions have risen 135%. Website clicks have increased over the same time period over the prior year. We do higher bidding when we place these ads for desktop because we know people who hit our site are desktop computer users. We have about 30% traffic from tablets and phones. And I think when you think about it is when you're booking a convention or a conference or planning meals, you're probably not doing it on your phone because you need more screen space. And then on the far left are native ads. We added these last year to our marketing mix and they continue to be the top driver of ad impressions and website clicks. It really does not appear to be an ad, looks more like an article that you would stumble upon and looking through your feed, news feed or grocery store ad or whatever you're looking for online. And then I wanted to make sure and highlight because our website is our front door to coming to Boise Center early on in the sales cycle. And maybe you're coming to an event here in a month, or maybe you're coming in a week and you're looking for where to park and where is my meeting going to happen. So our website really sees a growing amount of traffic and sessions. And really since about 2022 to where we are today, I'll call out for you the website sessions. And those are people that visit the site and take action on the site. They're viewing pages, they're clicking on links, they're downloading menus. Our sessions are up 18% over last year. Last year we hit a record high. So I think that's a nice healthy statistic. Our website users, and these are people that are coming to the site for the first time. They have not been at the site for more than 90 days. That's up 16%. All of our traffic sources that include paid and organic. The paid media means all the advertising that we're paying for is our largest driver of traffic to the site. And that has typically been the case. This year, the percentage is 42.8%, and we're only halfway through the year. That may come up a little bit. If you notice under sessions, you'll see social and email, and those are social advertising and emails, whether they're emails that Boise Center is sending or Visit Boise, those are meetings and conventions emails. And we do keep track of our ad conversions, people that click on the ad and then submit an event inquiry form or a contact us form, and we're trending ahead of the prior year. And quickly, I'll give you a recap because this is interesting for people who are in that marketing realm. Our top 5 states of visitation to the site: Idaho, California, Washington, Texas, and Colorado. And it's very consistent, or I would say pretty consistent with where Visit Boise is too for their meetings and convention. What I'm really happy to see is that we're in the top 6. Virginia comes in at number 6, and we love to see that because that means Washington, DC, and our advertising and targeting there is working. Number 10, Illinois has jumped up. Our top 5 cities: Boise, Seattle, Los Angeles, and Ashburn, Virginia, which is probably when we place digital ads on website, Google sometimes will do this DMA, and I can't remember what that stands for. Chase, do you remember what DMA stands like? Demographic, metro, something, statistics. I don't know if you quote me on that. And then the other top 5 is Chicago, and Atlanta and Denver are in that top 10.
MSA?
That's.
Metropolitan
thank you.
Statistical
That's
Area?
it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for helping me. And finally, Cliff was going to follow me, but he was my predecessor, so we thought this would tie together. Boise Center, we do utilize an integrated marketing approach. We have 7 different touch points, 7 different facets in which we use to really find meeting and event planners, whether they're in the local market, whether they're regional, across the West or nationally, and this includes everything that you see on your screen. Some of it Cliff and I place directly and had touch and put out into the market, and some of it we work with our sales team and visit Boise to do as well. But our goal is always to increase brand awareness, generate website traffic, and retarget all of those people with ads, and then convert those to leads, which ultimately lead to more future bookings. And I'm happy to answer questions. I know we're running short on time, so I'm gonna get out of this chair. Unless you have questions.
Questions?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to be respectful of our Madam Chair here because I know you have a commitment outside of here. I'm happy to move. There's one more operational update from Julie. I can move that into next month and be happy to do that. I did tee her up.
How much time do you?
She probably needs
At least 15
15,
minutes.
at least 15 to get through her.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Want to do it now?
Yeah, I'm just gonna run out
All right.
afterwards, so.
Just had that relief
I
look on
appreciate
her
that,
face.
you know. Then I have to come up with another month slide and Cody.
Do we cover speeding tickets here,
All right.
board members?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm excited to talk about some operational updates. So tomorrow is my 1 year at Boise Center. So it's been a great experience. The team's been phenomenal. So I'm really happy to be here. And in my role, I'm overseeing food and beverage operations and technical services, which is AT and IB combined. So I'll talk through those updates and a couple of things that Cody mentioned. June, as we had a few less events, we had 2 big events I wanted to really touch on. Kid for a Night had a new record here that on their fundraising. They raised $870,000 for their children's hospital. And so I wanted to note that here. It's the top 2 pictures. You have a dinosaurs, they have different decades in each of the rooms. And then their main room was like a time travel theme. Our AV and ops did a phenomenal job. I mean, the amount of lighting that was in all of West was incredible. So I just want to do a huge shout out to the audiovisual team. Stars of the Nile, this was a long, complex event. As you saw the attendance that they raised while they were here. We had 18 meals that took place at the same time. So essentially that means we served 18 different rooms simultaneously, which was a record for Boise Center on the food and beverage. And I included a couple of pictures. That's the trade show space in 400, and then scooter parking. Again, I mean complex. This group had mobility challenges as well as a lot of dietary restrictions that we, got to learn a lot from, which is what we took it. And we raised the occasion. As you can see, the Sonia, the client, also said this was the best experience she had working in convention. So really take that to the team and how we really stepped up. And we also, I know, Kristen, you got the same award and mentioning the donation honor of the Boise Center staff. So I also included that. And again, this event not only took place in all of Boise Center, we also collaborated with the arena on the campus concept. And so just working closely with them in Ingress and learning through that was a great experience. And you did a phenomenal job speaking as I was there. So. And then just wanted to show a flip. So not only were these 2 big events, they were back to back. And so the team had to flip the space. This is just a time lapse from the beginning of the tear down. So I didn't show the whole thing, but just gives you an idea of us tearing down the space. And just how organized, the chairs are stacked. And we have just an incredible team that works really well together to get it done. And then touch on briefly the logistics committee. So we have a committee, member from each department is part of it, and he meets monthly to go over WildJestions, quarter award winners, and plan the staff activity. Last month, we had a staff barbecue at Ann Morrison. It was great. We probably had 70 people turn out. And the WildJestions is just a way for part-time, full-time to really give feedback and help continue our great culture we have here. And one of the suggestions was baby changing stations. So we had one in the family restroom in East, but we didn't have them in all the bathrooms. And they noticed a guest that was in the women's bathroom and needed one. And that was something we found from a staff. And so really having that open communication is so crucial. And kudos to what Boise Center has done to continue to take this logistics program. And we continue to recognize people on a quarterly basis as well. So, and then we have that staff meeting next month. Funny, because see the picture here, you just saw at the Seattle Summit. So we had some travel, just gonna go over completed travel, the chamber leadership, which I know if you were there, it was a great opportunity for me that hasn't been to chamber leadership, get some clients and some local leaders in attendance. IAVM, which is International Association of Venue Managers. That's, a huge association that we're a part of, and That's where we got to tour actually the summit and make some connections. So it was a great opportunity to go to Region 4. It's Cody, myself, and Pam that were able to have the convention at Tacoma, have our, the Region 4 is at Tacoma Convention Center, but then we got to also tour the new Seattle Convention Center. And then IMVM Venue Management School. So this is a 2-year program. It's a week long each year. And Shira just graduated from the program. So I included a quote just on how important that VMS school did for her career and continuing to bring that feedback back. And so just the support you've given us and the leadership here to continue to grow. VMS has been a huge part of that. And we've actually have 5 people on staff that have completed the program. So Shire is now our 5th person. And then Alan Cushing, our ops manager, just went for his first year. Some future travel, another IAVM, but this is Venue Connect. It'll be the national conference, and we're excited about I'm really excited. We'll be going with the sales team, Cody, myself, and Nick, and really to see trade show space on some equipment, networking, and some sessions. And that will be actually Cody's leaving Friday, and I'm leaving Sunday. So it'll be great to meet people on a national level that are theaters, conventions, stadiums, and more. Illuminate by Momentous. This is like our data. This is all our data that we use on scheduling, finance. It's a robust, the forecasting. So we'll be sending 2 people, Jennifer from sales and then Puneet from our IT, that will be able to really dive into this program and learn more from what other people do using this system, Momentous, as well as get some training on app admin. And then LDI and DSE, which is essentially anything to do with video, digital signage, lighting. Casey, our director of technical services, will be there to get us just continue to grow our technical service department, our audio visual, and our IT. And so we're looking at some new digital signage and just continuing to learn from the best. And so this is a huge conference in December. All right, and then department updates, food and beverage. We have 114 people on staff in this department. We are staffed for all our events. We've done a great job, and we're continuing to staff up for the fall. So we're in a good place, especially out of COVID. Client survey, as Cody mentions each month about their experience. We also ask the client, each department, and what their experience is with us. And so we really take to heart the feedback. We get a lot of written feedback as well, but as you can see, we've continued to do well as our score has been, in the 4 out of 5. So. And then to highlight, which I know we brought in pastries before, but our pastry team is continuing to raise the bar. Chef Ashley and Sam have continued to make and design fabulous pastries. We had 65% frozen products last year. We're down to 10% in the pastry team. So continuing to reevaluate fresh products, and they've done a tremendous job. Then operations, consists of 55 people as of June. We continue to grow this department, as we've talked about, limited space, and this is the department that's here 24/7. So just trying to continue to make sure we're meeting that demand. And then we had 2 ops managers. We're now going to 1 and restructuring that operations leadership. And I did want to just play a quick video. This is the other ops manager that is not leading, but you can just see about the culture. And I really want to reiterate that, just how we're giving him a really great send off. And you have to leave in the summer to have this happen. But, it just really shows that we're really happy for him, but also just having all departments out there to do a great send off. So wanted to really share that. And then the Survey Monkey, again, asking them about the cleanliness of restrooms or just how we're doing. And we're continuing to get great feedback from our
You
clients.
should do that for board members when they retire.
Yeah.
All right, who's next? Wait till the hundreds get back. Support documents, big shout out to Mary Michael on these, but we have updated our client service guide from A to Z, which is just, again, helping educate the client on what our rules and regulations are in our building. We also condensed it into a 1-page, which is our vendor 1 sheet. This is a document just really given to our vendors to help us and help them know our rules, and links it back to the client service guide. And then even a step further, really trying to find icons and how can we really get people to look at our policies. And so this was a new document on Move In, Move Out, just to help guide them and give them that good experience, but also help our team continue to enforce these rules. And then I'll touch briefly on this. we're just continuing, as we know, the space is limited at Boise Center, so we're looking at just future booking guidelines and just, these are the type of things that we think about, you know, total room nights, repeat customer, how long is the event? Are they spending money on food and beverage and technical services? What time of year is this happening, and continue to look at patterns. So the sales and events team have done a great job revenue managing the space and working together. And so we have almost essentially a formula that helps guide us. And as we continue to look at events that want the same space and what's best for the district and Boise Center. So these are some of the items we look at, but again, this is a guideline and we continue to reassess event by event. And then technical services, as I mentioned, this is AV and IT teams. We're continuing to invest in this department with 27 people. We're continuing to get more needs in for the client to have our audiovisual and IT and to take on any event that comes to Boise Center. And so they've continued got great feedback. Our only 3 that I've shown you in the 3 departments is the internet. And so that's something that we actually are looking at, reevaluating with our client, making sure we know how much technology they're bringing on site, what is, you know, reassessing live, how the internet's doing, and then doing a post with them if necessary, depending on how much internet they do. So again, continuing to look at that process. And a couple more from technical services, Momentous, as I mentioned earlier, this is our big data-driven software. This is the amount of data we put in 2023. We did not have 704 events, but that is the amount of data that we're putting in 24, 25, 26. And so just showing how much we're using it. And I'm really excited for the conference that will continue to streamline our processes. And then custom SSID, we discovered we have the ability to do this. So again, just another offering that we can have. They can have their name or sponsor as part of their Wi-Fi. And again, just trying to elevate what we can offer from a guest experience. And then KnowBe4, as we know, cybersecurity is not going away. So we've, I guess, purchased a company that helps us do internal cyber attacks and do modules. So it's just an internal kind of learning for our staff. So as you can see, we were at 38 at the beginning of this year, and now we're at 28. So we've continued to reassess as I'm not sure if you've heard, but cyber attacks, people are our biggest assets, but they're also one of the ones that click on the email and then they have an attack. So we've continued to improve our positioning with this. We're at a 4% phishing prone is kind of what they've called it. And for our size company, 21% is about where our benchmark would be. So we're doing phenomenal. So we're continuing to make sure that our staff understand, you know, this is just one of the things we have to do these days, so. And then capital projects, as we know, Boise Center East, as you've seen, happened earlier this year. We have a second mother's nursing pod. We realized there was a demand with West and East, so now we have one in both buildings. And now we can, instead of using a room, we can now have this and not have to take up a room for a nursing mother's pod. The loading truck bay was a before and after picture. Just to touch on this briefly, one of our ops supervisor mentioned, hey, it would be cool to have a window. And that was like right in the already planned and ordered, but we were able to, you know, Nick heard that comment and we were able to get a window installed. So it's been the biggest talk to be able to see the back of the truck bay. So little improvements, but again, new doors, new structural as well. So that was a great project we just completed this month. New walk-in cooler in the west was the original. And then the south spoke lights, it's all been refreshed. And that is coming to end of life. So we are, again, that'll be great for the conference that Casey's going to the end of this year for another, maybe a new idea for that space as that equipment's going to the end of life. And then we had an entire lighting network refresh with Barbizon, which was a huge undertaking for the team. But we were able to all be working well with Barbizon Lighting Company. All right, future department, I said a couple of here. So food and beverage, as Cody's mentioned, Toast, our point of sale is what we just launched actually this week. So it's been great. The team has been super happy. They can pay on their watch. We've elevated our, I think our back of house. I'm really excited for the team on Toast. It also has the ability to do on-site ordering. So I'll be looking at that for operations and technical service. So if a vendor wants to buy tape, we could essentially have a handheld on the floor and purchase it right away. So that's something that we're looking at towards the end of this year. Food and beverage coming out with some new menu items, looking at Sakami Ovens East. And then a 200 refresh for ops. Obviously, this space is going to be refreshed at the end of this year, really 2025. The West Terrace, as Cliff has mentioned, has the window decal, but we need to do epoxy. There were some leaks, so that'll be done this month. And then we're also looking at a new guest survey. So we have Happy or Not, and we're no longer using it. It's the button that you press. And we're looking at a different way that we can ask, get some guest feedback. So looking at QR codes placed around the building, maybe on the website. So continuing to get that feedback as well, not just the client. So I'm excited to see more to come on that. And then, as Cliff mentioned, the branding and sponsorship guide, also the audiovisual guide that Mary Michael's been helping with. Again, just really client facing, helping guide the client and helping us move forward and continuing to really invest in our technical service team. And then we are looking at some new digital signage. Look. Whew. Okay, I got through it.
Any questions?
Do you have questions for me? I know that was a lot of different, and I'm happy to answer offline as well. Good question. Glad to be in,
Madam
yes.
Chair, How many who are your direct reports and how much turnover has been this year?
So my direct reports, and I'll go for their tenure, but Chris Lochner's been here, I guess, off and on since 1990. Director of Food and Beverage, Stacy Lisby's, I think 18 years. A senior event manager, Nick Shoba, who's our Director of Ops, who's been here about 7 years, more than that.
14 total, seven since his
And
time
then-
at Chamber.
Casey started at the same time as me a year, so I have 4 direct reports. And then, looking at some of the data, I was looking at Paylocity. I mean, we have really, our leadership is really longevity, I would say, and again, it's very typical for the vet industry, probably 2 years is what I was seeing a little bit on like our servers or college students, so there's a lot of in our part-time and some of our entry-level positions is more turnover, and that's very normal in this type of environment. But for my experience and even going to IBM, I mean, we've done a phenomenal job with our tenure, our longevity. So I think we've really, kudos as I talk about culture. I mean, we will talk to people and that's not the same experience.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll just finish off by recognizing Julia. In 1 year, she's been able to tackle stuff that took me years to learn within this industry. And obviously bringing in her expertise from Boise State has been invaluable, but what she's been able to do and wrap her arms around the departments and the operational side of this business, earn the respect of the team is admirable. And I just want to recognize her.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Well, congrats on 1 year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So
All right, seeing no other business before the board, meeting's adjourned.